Tong's work really exemplifies his just immaculate craftsmanship. This sculpture is so detailed. Every single bone of the bird is precisely constructed to replicate the actual bird, and it really shows his interest, I think, in ornithology, the study of birds and the skeletons, and there's a long history of people collecting skeletons and then putting them back together to have as these sort of samples, these relics of these different species. In Tong's version, the bird, instead of collecting the bones, he's refabricated each of the bones using a process using metalworking, and of course that's a really mechanized process. And I think that's one of the sort of interesting dynamics here, is that on the one hand, these birds, these like living beings, speak to biodiversity and biology, but he's recreated them as these mechanical objects. And of course, right now, in this current moment, environmental change that's being driven by industrialization in Western countries is really a very important conversation that we're having. And I think these works do sort of speak to, or make me think about how certain species are going extinct because of human activities, whether that's our industrializations, our factories, or hunting, or our incursion into the environments of these species. So I think it really does ask some interesting questions. There's also this interesting dynamic between the organic versus the mechanical. So the bird being something that lives and breathes and eats, but then being refabricated as this almost robotic mechanical object, I think is really interesting. But I also feel like this work doesn't go quite far enough in asking these questions. For me, it's not clear where Tong stands in this. It seems like the detail in the work is really amazing. It's very highly skilled, but I'd like to see more of a message communicated through the sculpture. And I think one way of emphasizing that story, that messaging, is to think about how these works are situated. So right now, this very beautiful skeleton is in this sort of lily pad environment, but surrounded by lotuses. But I wonder if it was put somewhere else in a more mechanical environment, how that might immediately make us think about our impact on the habitat of these species. Another sort of art historical reference that I think of with these works, of course, is Damien Hirst, who's really known for his use of taxidermied animals and skeletons in these really confrontational works that he's produced and exhibited around the world. So I think Tong is in good company in terms of the types of compositions he's making, but I feel like maybe he can push it a little further.